We're live.
Oh man, here we go. It is that time. I've been feeling the buzz all day. All day. I've been hearing it in my leagues. I've been hearing it in the Discord. I've been hearing it in the Twitter streets. I'm leading the excitement, the hype, just because I'm excited for it. But I've been pumped to do this show. I know a lot of other people have as well. My name's Garrett Price, but you already know that if you're here. You already know that this good-looking man here is Jared Wackerly. Jared, how you doing, homie?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm just like looking at all these screens, trying to make sure the stream's up and running. How do we sound, guys? Do we sound all right? Any mics need turned
I don't know what to
down,
do with my
up?
hands.
Garrett can be a little loud. But what's
That
up,
is
Garrett?
true,
You ready to go, man? I'm so glad tonight is here. Let me just say
dude.
that.
Dude, it's a
Oh,
lot of work to get to this point. It's a lot of work. We watch. I mean, dude, I don't even know how many hours of tape we watch to get ready for something like
hours.
this. Dude, so many hours.
The
So
wives
many
are
like
so happy too. Like I'm just like
oh
sorry.
yeah,
April, it's April. It's draft month. Like I'm sorry. But
it's true.
we're almost
Literally,
here.
I had to tell my wife, like, I just got to get through Sunday, babe. Once I get through Sunday, things will slow down. I promise. I promise. I don't know if she believes me, but yeah, we've got like 100 people already in here watching. Everyone's excited. Everyone's ready for us to start talking about these nerd scores. Now, uh, I was about to say something. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait
What were you gonna say?
because I no, because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm not trying to be Mr. Spoiler here. I think we got to get into it, Jared. But before we get into the actual scores, let's give a quick recap because I think a lot of people. You did a great job in your tweet yesterday, kind of explaining what the nerd score is. But I'm sure not everyone saw the tweet. Real quickly, Jared, can you give a quick snapshot of what this is and how we do it, why we do it? By the way, I see guys, they're saying it's like 3 a.m. in Germany and they're watching. Like people are
What's
committed,
up?
Jared. They're excited. Love it.
I love it,
Love
dude.
it. So
I
tell us, what is
appreciate
the
you.
nerd score?
Yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. A lot of hard work goes into this, but the nerd score is a composite metric, so it's a weighted average of film grades that we score in several different categories for running backs and wide receivers. So Garrett and I and most of us at Dynasty Nerds are film guys, quote unquote film guys. Not so much in the analytics side of things, though we do try to bring that in after we do our film grades and everything. So this is strictly a film grade. It is not our rookie rankings. The rankings take in other factors. The nerd score is a film grade. So if you're someone that is a film guy and you're telling people, hey, trust my eyes, like listen to me for my takes because I know what I'm watching, then you should be putting out a grade every single year to show people that you're actually good at what you do. And we wanted to test
Yeah.
ourselves. We started with the 2020 class, and that was our first class. It was okay. We didn't do fantastic, but I think since then we've really, really honed in on our process and our skill at it. And so far, we've outpaced draft capital in terms of correlating to fantasy football success. So I'd say we're doing pretty good with that. And it's been really cool now that we've got, what is this, our fifth year, Garrett, or fourth year?
Fifth.
Fifth year now. So we have all this data to look back on to see, what guys scored where. So we're starting to find thresholds of scores where, hey, this guy, running backs or wide receivers need to get to this score in order to be fantasy football relevant. So really excited to see what this has come to. Anything else, Garrett, that you want to add to that?
Real quick, a few different things. One, I heard like 50% of what you said just because I've already been so entertained by the chat. It's
I know.
the amount of inside jokes already in there. Tez Walker 101, people talking about my insecurity over my weed hat, which is a Buckeye leaf.
I didn't even
It is a
realize you had
Buckeye
a weed
leaf.
hat on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is my weed hat. 420 was this past weekend, so I gotta celebrate. Uh, which is funny coming from the guy that's like never smoked weed in his life. But anyway, regardless, uh, all kinds of stuff. So I'm loving hearing everybody chatting, talking. Somebody said that you should take Chase Daniels with the 101 in Devi. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure you know, or maybe you don't. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but I appreciate everybody's comments and everything. Like, I love it. Let's keep it going. And we're gonna do like a Q&A after we're done. Like, we'll try to answer people's questions. But we do want to get through like releasing our scores. And if you do go to Dynasty Nerds not right now and you're a Nerd Herd member, they are live on the site right now, so you can kind of follow along with us. What?
You did it. You spoiled it. That was the thing I was gonna say. And I was like, wait, they're just gonna leave the show and go see all the scores.
Everybody's on a device. You can get different, YouTube. You can put it in a little mini window. Or whatever.
Two things at once. That's true. All right, one last thing before we get into our. I can't. I can barely unitask. All right. Before we get into the specific scores and stuff, which I'm very excited to reveal and release, the last thing that I want to say is just to remind you guys that this is not the end all be all. Do not take these as rankings. Okay. This is not necessarily how we would rank these players pre-draft. And it's especially not how we would rank these players post-draft. Yes, for us, our tape score is one of the biggest factors in how we feel about these players and where we will eventually rank them. But don't take this the gospel truth where, hey, this guy, he got a super high nerd score, but man, he fell to the 7th round, but I'm still going to take him as a second overall player. Like, you have to factor in all of the other things, use the analytics, use the different tools, use the draft capital, use the combine, use all of these different things as pieces. So this is one of the pieces of the puzzle. We think it's an important one, and we think it's a pretty big one, but it is still only one piece of that puzzle. So please don't use this as your sole ranking, because that's not what it's meant for. Right, Jared?
Correct. And I mean, we have our actual rankings on dynastynerds.com and on the app. Use the app. That's where we've been putting them out mainly. But exactly. I mean, for me, I use mostly my tape evaluation. Like, that's what I lean on as an analyst, and it's done well for me. I've been successful, so I lean on that pretty heavily. Is my mic better? Sure. I turned it up a little bit. I appreciate everybody giving that feedback. But
yeah, that and ball skills, apparently.
Ball skills.
All right.
So where do you want to start, Gary? You want to do running backs first or wide receivers? So we're doing top 5 running backs in the class and then top 10 receivers in the class.
Let's do wide receivers. Let's do wide receivers first. Then we'll get to running backs. We are going to go through our top 10 wide receivers because it's a larger group. We're going to go through our top 10 receivers. We don't want to give away all of them because that is Nerd Herd content. So we are only going through our top 10 there and our top 5 running backs. We might touch on a few other little things. We will go on some historical data and some things like that. But we're not going to break down like the nuance either of route running and different things like that. That's strictly for the Nerd Herd. So we want to make sure that we give you guys an amazing show, but we still protect some of the things for our Nerd Herd members. So let's get into our first receiver we're going to talk about, Jared.
Let's get it. So we got Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, finishing with a 73.4. Garrett, maybe you could first let's lay out what the threshold is at wide receiver.
Yeah, so for us, what we've kind of noticed over the years is at wide receiver, you need to have roughly a 72 or higher to really have a good shot at being relevant. Once you're below that 72 mark, the guys under that mark really, it's very, very spotty. There are some in there, but it's very sparse. And then once you get below that, like 67 or so mark, we have like 1 or 2 guys that have ever been fantasy relevant in that range. So you definitely want to be in that 72 or above for those top names. So Ricky Pearsall, one of our top guys, top 10
And that just
in
tells
this
you
class.
how strong the class is. Our 10th guy finishes well above a 72. He's a 73.4. Personally, I had him at a 72.8. So Garrett, we kind of weigh each other. It's an average between Garrett and I at the moment. So you brought him up. You're a little higher on him than I, though I do like Ricky Pearsall quite a bit. Why don't you speak to what you liked about Ricky and how you scored him?
Yeah, I gave him a 73.98, so he just missed getting into that 74 range. His best attribute, and it's reflected in this graphic, his top attribute is his route running. He's a very smooth operator when it comes to route running. Guy has really, really good hands, solid release off the line. He's not this crazy athlete. He's not going to out-athlete people, and he's fine in contested catch, not overly physical, but yeah, the ball skills are there for everyone that's asking. The ball skills are absolutely.
I'm glad people
it's
actually
funny.
like that, because when I say it, sometimes I'm like, what if I'm just saying this and no one else thinks this is funny at all?
That almost would make it even more funny if
Yeah.
it was a joke that no one thought was funny.
So when I did it on the main
But yeah,
show,
we did.
Rich just kind of looked at me and Matt just kind of looked at me and they didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
They had no clue.
No.
Like, thanks for listening to the show, guys. Jerks.
Yeah, but no, just
no,
like
but go ahead.
I was gonna say, like Ricky Pearsall, I think he can come in right away and start for an NFL team. I kind of like him. I like his ability to play not only outside, but I think he could do really well from the slot and be a good slot receiver. He's extremely refined as a route runner. He was able to separate at all levels. I think he's really good at tracking the football. There were some moments when watching his tape where the way he tracked the football was different. Like he found a way to come back to the ball, like around defenders and stuff. Like that's not something that you see very often. And then as far as like finding the soft spot in the zone, like just a very heady player. So I think he'd be able to come in and produce right away. And he's probably going to be a nice late second round pick in rookie drafts, depending what his draft capital looks like.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of ball skills comments, and it's interesting because there's a metric that we've kind of loosely been tracking over the past. We recently started tracking, but we went back and kind of looked at the data from the past few years. And when looking at guys in each class, the things that we believe correlate kind of to those really good ball skills. So it's everything leading up to the catch and then the actual catch itself. Ricky Pearsall is actually one of the best in the class. So if you were to take the release score with route running, and there's some little nuance in how we weight it, but release, route running, hands, and body control. If you're to take those four things and you're to put them together, Ricky Pearsall is the third best in the class. So it is a really interesting metric that we found those four really correlate strongly to fantasy football success over the years. With Ricky Pearsall coming in third in this class, and that it's definitely a little bit eye-opening as far as, yeah, we have him 9th, or 10th, but maybe he's a guy that could even climb up a little bit.
Were you looking at the Apex score we came up with, or the spectacular catch?
I think it was the Apex score.
Okay.
Right?
He's actually fourth. He's fourth in the class. He's behind.
Okay, we messed with the weight, so it changed.
Okay.
Before we messed with it, when I messaged you first, he was third. So I'm curious who's third now.
Adonai Mitchell is third.
Oh,
spoiler
Adonai
alert.
Jumped him.
Yeah, so we're still tooling around with like these separate metrics that we're putting together for, not just the nerd score. You get the nerd score, and then you get like the raw grades for the different categories. But like I talked about it last year a little bit. We were gonna release it this year, but we're still tooling around with it with like I don't know, we're calling it an Apex score, but that was literally just a word that I threw in there today to call it. Then we got
I'm pretty sure it should be called ball skills, but we'll see.
Ball skills. Yeah, we should call it ball skills. And we got the separation score, and we got spectacular catch. So No, definitely some good scores in this class when it comes to like the apex score across all classes. The number one, well, I'm not gonna spoil the number one guy, but everyone can probably guess. But as far as like all players from all classes, Ricky
Bub
Pearsall
Means.
was 17th, and that's pretty
Is it Bub
good.
Means? Is he number one?
Yeah, Bub Means. I didn't even grade
It's
him,
Bub
dude.
Means. All right. Let's get to number 9.
Sorry, a little delayed. Brian Thomas,
Sorry.
LSU. This might be surprising to people. We are
Yeah.
definitely lower than consensus on Brian Thomas. And Garrett, you started off. Tell everyone why maybe we're not as high as most people have probably been hearing through the draft process on Brian Thomas.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a little bit of a rant on the Dynasty Nerds podcast this past week, and it it's because I'm seeing a quantity of players in this class that really fall into this field stretcher category. They're guys with decent length and they have decent speed and they take the top off the defense really well. But outside of that, they don't have the physicality, they don't have the contested catch, and they don't have excellent route running. So that's basically what Brian Thomas falls into for me. I don't think he's a bad player at all. And if we were talking about him in this wide receiver 9 type of range, I would be great with it. You want to talk about him with Ricky Pearsall and Jermaine Burton and for me, Troy Franklin, but spoiler alert, Troy Franklin's not in our top 10. Oh, better become a Nerd Herd member to find out where he is. But when we're talking about him inside of that type of context, like, sure, that's fine. Put him there. But if we're going to be talking about him pushing the limits of Odunze and Neighbors and guys like that, it's just way too high for me. When you look at somebody that I believe is more or less a one-dimensional receiver, could he get better at running routes? Yes, it's definitely a possibility. But it's tough to hope on a project player. And with defenses running so much more covered too, to make sure that they have 2 safeties high and not allowing teams to make big plays on them. A lot of the good quarterbacks in the league have adjusted. That's why we see the ADOT of Kansas City receivers from Pat Mahomes so low, because he's adjusted and he's figuring out new ways to win. NFL defenses are not wanting to give up the big plays. And I feel like these guys that are somewhat one-trick ponies and that's how they win are going to be burning us in fantasy for the next few years.
Yeah, I think you hit on some key points as to why I'm also not as high. But let's be real here. Like a 73.7 is not a death sentence whatsoever. I mean, he clears that 72 threshold pretty easily, and from like an all-time wide receiver standpoint in terms of the nerd score, he's right around like Michael Pittman Jr., Tank Dell we had at a 73.6 last year. We had Josh Downs at a 73.6. Christian Watson had the exact same score at a 73.7. So Brian Thomas, like, there's a lot of tools, and he's young. He's 21 and a half. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I when watching his tape, like, I do see like flashes where I can see him blossoming into a good receiver and a fantasy producer, though he has things to work on, hence the score. So I think he needs to work on his use of his hands at the line of scrimmage and getting the DB's hands off him in his route. I think he tends to be able to get his route thrown off too much from a physicality standpoint and just a technique standpoint. I think he needs to add a little more nuance in his route running. I think he's a little bit all over the place in terms of breaking off his routes and even coming across the middle. He kind of is floating around too much. So tools are there. Not quite the top end talent that people have all been hearing, in our opinion. You know, we've been wrong in the past, so we'll see. First round draft capital, like we all have been hearing in the NFL draft, would certainly have to move him up, I think, slightly in my rankings as of right now. But in terms of ball skills, there's not much there. So
there's not.
No.
He did not get a great ball skills score.
No. More of a speed guy, like an MVS type guy, or like a Darius Slayton type guy. So,
yep.
Garrett,
we'll see. We'll see if he can evolve past that. Let's get to number 8 at wide receiver,
and that is our big boy from South Carolina, Xavier Legette, Matt O'Hara's guy. I like Matt Xavier Legette quite a bit, not as much as Matt. And it's tough when you come across a profile like this, but we're not looking at it from like an analytics standpoint. This is strictly from the lens of what he did on tape. And on tape, dude, I mean, this guy, first of all, he's huge, 6'1", 221. And when you get the ball in his hands, he kind of turns into a running back, which is unheard of for a guy that size. Not unheard of, but I mean, you like to see, especially for the next level. Definitely needs to work on his route running and become more refined there. But a little older, 23 right now. Really good at the catch point. In terms of ball skills, this guy's got some ball skills. What did you like about Legette, Garrett?
Yeah, I liked him quite a bit. I gave him, so my score is even a little bit higher than our composite score. I had him at a 74.58. So I'm in. I'm on Team Legette. I remember watching him, and I couldn't tell if it was because I was tired and delusional, because obviously scouting is a subjective process, but he was a guy that I was scouting at like 5 a.m. after a Dynasty Nerds show one night, because we thought we had a gas leak. So I stayed up all night to make sure my family didn't die, and they didn't. So we were good. But all that to say, that was one of the guys I spent time scouting, and I had to go back and watch another game or two like a day later, because I wasn't sure if what I was seeing was correct or if I was just tired and delusional, because I also messaged Jared that same day and thought that our podcast was on 1.25 speed, and it definitely wasn't.
I think you're just sleep deprived. Like, it sounds fine.
But I really liked his tape. You're absolutely right. His release, I gave a below average score. His route running, I gave a below average score. Was not a fan of either one of those things, but he's also a guy that played quarterback in high school. Mm-hmm. You would think that hopefully over time he'll still develop those things, and he has the movement skills to potentially do it. Who was it? There was a head coach recently that I thought it was a really interesting quote. I'll have to go look and see, but he said basically, watch guys in the open field, and that shows you what type of potential they have as a route runner. Doesn't mean they'll get there, but if you watch them in the open field and you see good movement skills, that's the type of potential that they have as a route runner. And he has some pretty decent skills in the open field. He's still not like a make you miss guy, but he can make some nice hard one cut go type of movements. So I'm not sold that he can't become a better route runner, but yes, that my ball mentality, his ability to be able to be really physical, get good yards after the catch, attack the football. He's got a good catch radius. Like I said, I have a 5 and a 5.5 on those first two, release and route running. Everything else for me is like I have 1.7, and everything else is between a 7.5 and an 8.5. Like, all stuff that I look at and I'm like, yep, I like that in a receiver. Yep, I like that in a receiver. Yep, I like that in a receiver. Now, this is one of those prospects, though, where I would consider moving him down a little bit because of the analytical profile, with it being only a 1-year breakout, and it was a late breakout. He's an older prospect. Like, some of those things do worry me a little bit. So I don't think he's as locked and loaded safe, but he's definitely one of the best upside guys in this class, and he can do some things differently than a lot of other players, which makes him really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing like what kind of draft capital he gets. I saw a video, I think you retweeted it, or you might have quote tweeted it, and he said something about how the Panthers have been contacting him about how if he's there at 33, they're planning to take him. Now, who knows? Like maybe he's just trying to drive his value up a little bit to maybe get taken in the first round, which from like an athleticism and tool standpoint, like I could see him going in the first, but I mean, personally, I wouldn't take him there. I don't know. So like from like the Apex score that we were talking about, dude is 78th. And then from like a separation score, which we also do, he's really low there too. Not saying we're still tooling around with that, so that's just some context there, but he could definitely, I could easily see him bust. You know, I would not reach for him. I would, if he's there in the range that I'm comfortable taking him, then I could do that. I'm gonna pull up.
Let's play a game real quick.
Too.
Let's play a quick game here, Jared. Mm-hmm. Let's say he goes. You know, we've been loving the Adonai Mitchell 28 to the Bills, but let's say Legette goes there instead. All right, good landing spot, good team. What's the highest you could see yourself taking him?
Probably like 201.
Okay, so no matter what, he's not a super flex tight end premium first round guy for you, no matter what.
No, I'd probably still take 3, maybe all 4 running backs that we like in the top 4 there first before him, depending, you know.
Okay.
Let's wait and see what their draft capital and landing spot looks like too.
Sure. But assuming 2 of them get good capital to decent teams, and you know we have 3 or 4 other receivers go in the first round besides those top 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't take him above Ladd or Xavier Worthy, and assuming those guys get just as good draft capital like we all think. So yeah, I think 201 is probably where I'd be comfortable with him. What about you?
I could see a world where I would be comfortable at like 110, 111.
Okay.
I could see that being a possibility. You know, I expect at least 1, if not 2 of these running backs to get good draft capital and good landing spot. I could see a
Jalen Wright or Xavier Legette.
For me right now, probably all things being equal, you know, let's say end of second round for Jalen Wright, which would be good draft capital, and end of first round for Legette. I would take Legette over Wright probably, unless it was like the perfect landing spot.
Okay.
But he's the lowest of those. He's the lowest of those 4 running backs for me, though. So if it was any of the other 3, that would probably be enough to put me over the top for them.
Yeah, I got you. All right, let's move on to the next guy.
Let's do it.
So we got the wide receiver from Alabama, Jermaine Burton. Now, since doing his breakdown on the main show, some things have kind of surfaced that I guess I wasn't privy to or knowledgeable of, as far as like his off the field stuff. I didn't know he had all this baggage with him. Now, that does not factor at all into this grade. And I really like Jermaine Burton, dude. I really like his film. I think he's a really savvy route runner. He's able to separate very well. I think where he needs to improve is probably contested catch situations, but I think he's good after the catch. I just think he's very refined as a player, like another guy kind of like Pearsall that I think could come in right away and play and produce. What do you like about Burton, Garrett? I know you like him too, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously, we have him pretty high. This is going to be higher than what you're going to see from consensus on most people. Yeah. Having him at wide receiver 7 is pretty high. Is pretty high. But the movement skills are 100% legit. Like 100% legit. He gets open. He's got solid hands when he does. He can do a little bit after the catch. I don't think he's elite after the catch, but he can do some good things after the catch.
Yeah.
He's got some good quickness, some good speed, just very refined, very polished. Looks like he could step into an NFL offense today and run out of the slot and be their number 2 receiver. Yeah. Like I could see him doing that today.
Dude.
Now
if this guy went to Buffalo, man, I would like that a lot more.
I mean, it would be really interesting. You know, you expect them to take more of an outside guy. because they have a couple guys in Curtis Samuel and
play
Khalil
outside.
Shakir. But I think he could too. I think he would be better out of the slot, but I absolutely think he could play on the outside as well. So yeah, he would be really interesting. But this is another one where we say these are not rankings. You know, with the off the field stuff, if that doesn't clear up and we see him falling down people's boards because of it, do not take this as the gospel truth. This is only simply how they performed on the field.
Yeah.
That's it. Doesn't have anything to do with injuries. Doesn't have anything to do with off the field red flags. Doesn't have anything to do with their testing numbers. Doesn't have anything to do with draft capital, analytical profile. None of that. Just simply, how do they look when we watch the tape? So I just want to repeat that because this could look like a terrible ranking if he falls to the end of the third or beginning of the fourth because teams are just worried about his off the field. But as far as just a pure player, I think he's worthy of being in this spot in this class.
So from an Apex score standpoint, he is 32nd, which is pretty good because I'm looking at all the classes
all-time,
combined.
Right?
Yep, this is combined. Separation score is 74.4, so pretty solid in both those marks. From an all-time wide receiver standpoint, let me see here. Let me find him. He is 29th, so pretty solid. Right there around like Jordan Addison from last year, Khalil Shakir, George Pickens was in that range. So some good names there. So pay attention to Jermaine Burton. I have him ranked right around like 206 right now. Where do you have him, Garrett? You probably don't have it pulled up at the moment, but
no, as far as like my personal rankings, yeah, I don't have those pulled up, but that sounds about the right range. Him and Legette are very close together for me. I have them back to back. Only it's flipped for me. So I have Legette over Burton, but I have them back to back.
That's funny. That's funny. I have
that is
flipped as well. Like I have them between Keon Coleman and Legette. So and it's simply like the off the field stuff that would like put Legette slightly over Burton, but it's one of those things where draft capital will change that depending on how it goes.
For sure. All right, let's get to number 6.
I know we start talking too much, and then we look down. It's like 3 hours down. Like last year, I think we went for 3 hours.
Dude,
but I
this
love
is not going to be a short show. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and you can
like
always...
we can't stop talking, and like I want to get into the chat more. Like we haven't even gotten to get a lot into the chat.
I know. I already ruined the next player. It's Xavier Worthy out of Texas.
Hey-o.
Garrett, tell us about Xavier Worthy and why he's got this 74.4.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy was a really fun one. One of 3 players named Xavier in this class. 2 of them are in our top 10.
Thanks, Garrett.
Fun fact, if we ever had a boy, that's what I wanted to name him. But we never had a boy. And my wife and I we agreed on girls' names easily. Could never agree on a boy's name. And God didn't give us a boy because of that. That's what I truly believe, because we would have fought too much over it. Anyway, Xavier Worthy, 74.4. Obviously, everyone knows him as a speed demon. Like, that's the first thing that everybody talks about, is he is now the new king of the 40-yard dash. And look, rightfully so. Like, you can't take that away from him. That's impressive. All of the stupid fast athletes that we've had at the NFL level, he's the fastest. Like, that's really cool. That's a cool distinction. However, you look at the wide receivers at the top of that list, it's a little underwhelming. It is. It's a little underwhelming. But where I'm going to give Xavier Worthy a little bit more credit than I would some of those other guys is I think he is a better route runner than a lot of those guys. I think he's a better technician than a lot of those guys were before. Now, you could easily say, well, other guys said they were good too and worth the first round pick. Well, we don't have time for revisionist history. All we have is what's right now. And for me, when I look at his scores, I gave him a 7 in release, which for a guy with a slight frame, he's not the best BMI type guy. A 7 is pretty solid release for that. 8 in route running, so really solid there. His biggest thing is he's not ever going to be a contested catch guy. Like, that's not his game. He doesn't have the physicality to ever really become one, nor do you really want him to be. Like, that's not his role at the next level. But there are times he attempts to be. Like, there are times that he'll at least throw his weight around.
He ain't
It doesn't
shy,
do
man.
much.
He doesn't shy from
But he
contact.
tries.
I love it.
I
Smith
do
was like
enjoy
that
it.
too.
Yep. They try, man. And so you appreciate that. There's just only so much, 170 pounds can really do. But all that being said, I do think we'll see some drops here and there, but you see that out of the best receivers in the league. Usually the highest total drop numbers are some of the guys that are scoring the most fantasy points in the league. So it's not something I'm overly concerned about, but it is something to kind of take note of. But overall, he's a good prospect, and I'm really curious to see what team he goes to and what kind of role they give him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'll say, like, going into watching his tape, I mean, I watch a lot of college football, as do you, and it's just so much different when you actually sit down to, like, break these guys down, especially from, like, the all-22 angle, because all I heard was how Xavier Worthy had drop issues. Now, does he have the best hands? No, but I don't think they're, like, super suspect, like Greg Little or something back in the day for the Browns.
What a call out there.
I know, right? I was trying to think real quick, like who couldn't catch. But man,
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, but one of the younger receivers in this class, he's almost 21. He'll be 21 at the end of this month. He's, from a tool standpoint, there's so much there to like. Like, he's not just a track fast guy. He's got a lot of little nuance in his game, like as far as being able to drop his hips or selling a route by, like, turning his head back to the quarterback. Like, there's a lot of little things there that you like when you watch him, that you should like when you watch him, that will translate to the next level. And you're going to have to respect his wheels. So you're just by nature, like, he's going to get a little more they're going to be off him a little more than they typically would of another receiver. He does need to work on getting off press, though. They are going to test him early and often in his career. So I think he could get off to a little slower start at the league. I think it's gonna take him a little bit to get acclimated to the physicality of the next level. But youth and upside, you got to swing on a guy like that. I have him as my wide receiver 7 in my nerd score. And as far as my rankings go, he's at about like 203 there between Ladd McConkey and Michael Penix Jr.
Is there any chance he's not a first-round pick in the NFL draft? I just can't see a scenario he falls out of the first.
I would love to see the odds. I would love to know the odds on that right now. I don't think so. I think he's a lock for the first round.
Like, could you imagine somehow he falls to 32? And Kansas City's like, oh, yeah, we'll take Xavier Worthy. We made it to the Super Bowl with MVS. We'll take Xavier Worthy. That'll be
the
great.
Cavs
Thank
won.
you. Did they? Let's go.
Yep, 2-0. Yeah, no, that'd be. I mean, anyone lands in Kansas City, it's always like, yo, first pick. Like
For sure.
That'd be a great landing spot.
By the way, Andrew Gilkin said, if I take Tez Walker at pick 18-9, rank my decision. By the way,
Garrett loves
I'm in a
Tez
startup
Walker
right now. He is not in this episode, but all I heard, like one guy in this league named his team Tez Walker 101. Like, they've embraced it. And so in the 18th round and the 9th pick in the 18th round, to stay on brand, I did in fact take Tez Walker in the startup. So I think that's a great decision.
Gabe wants to know what was our nerd score for Tyreek. It was an 88.
Yeah, highest score we've ever given.
What we
should do. We should go back and just rank a bunch of old players. I gave 92 to Jim Brown.
Too much bias. I know you're kidding. All right, let's move on.
All right, let's move on. Top 5 now.
Yeah,
top
I was going to say, we're in the top 5. I'm yawning over here, old dad.
Bro, you better wake up. We're going to be here till 2 a.m.
Get glad it's Ladd McConkey, Georgia wide receiver. Garrett, Tell us about Lad McConkey.
All right. This wee laddie over here. Lad, for me, he got a 75.78. So I have him slightly higher than you. But man, he's a very cerebral player. Like, he's a very smart player. You can tell
Typical,
he
like,
watched
white wide
white
receiver
guy
breakdown
analysis.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a real lunch pail guy. He's got a real motor on him. Sneaky athletic.
He is all those things.
All those things aren't necessarily incorrect either.
No.
But obviously, you know, we touched on it before. Really good route runner, really good hands. He is a good athlete, though. Don't let that fool you. He can do some things after the catch. He's not like he's not Malik Neighbors or anything like that, but he can do some things after the catch. He can make some guys miss. From an analytical profile, I heard some people saying like him and Garrett Wilson are actually very interesting and similar. I don't see them on the field playing the same way, though. So that is a little bit of an interesting comp to me. But there's just nothing in his profile where I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. Like, everything in his profile is either at least that's good,
Yeah.
or, oh, that's very good. But I also, other than route running, I don't really have anything great. But he just has such a high floor, which is the opposite of what you hear when we're talking about a lot of these guys. Like, we're talking about their ceilings. He has such a high floor. Like, I can't see a scenario where he's not several seasons inside the top 36 receivers. Like, he just doesn't seem like a guy that is going to bust. Now, will he ever be a wide receiver one? I highly doubt it. Like, it would have to take the perfect scenario, the perfect quarterback. Anybody can do it with enough targets. I just don't see a scenario where it happens. Plus, he's always struggled with injuries. So that could limit that as well. But man, just does a lot of things the right way. And yeah, he's my wide receiver 5, and he's wide receiver 5 for our composite as well.
Yeah. When you look at Lad McConkey, from comparing him to all the classes combined in our separation score and apex score type thing, or whatever we want to call them, composite grades, he scored an 80.7 for separation score, which actually puts him in the top 10 all time. So a guy that is a very good route runner, good release, and then he also has the athleticism to finish with that. You know, sometimes in college you'll see these guys that have the ability of like route running, and they're technical, they can get off the line of scrimmage, but they just don't have that athleticism that's going to allow them to win at the next level, because everybody is so freaking athletic in the NFL. Like, it just puts you on a level playing field. So Lad McConkey scored really good separation score, and then from an apex score, he was 29th, which is good. Not great, but good with all classes combined. Right now, I have him ranked at 202. So behind the running backs, I would still take the running backs before him, I think. We'll see how the draft capital goes, see where he ends up landing. I could easily move him above those guys because, like Garrett said, I think he's a guy that's just going to kind of score year in, year out, target machine. So like Lad McConkey quite a bit. Garrett.
All right.
Should we move on to the next guy?
We should.
I'm kind of pissed, dude.
Why?
I wish I would have poured a little glass of bourbon for the old film nerds.
Go do it.
Say.
Go do it right now. Go do it right now. I can wax poetic about this guy.
You know what? Do an underdog read. Do an underdog read. Support the show. Do an underdog read. I'll be right back.
All right.
Get bourbon.
All right. If you head over to Underdog right now, do it right now. Look, like Jared said, 2 screens. You can do 2 screens. Head over to Underdog right now. Go put in $10. You go put in $10. You can play best ball with it. You can do whatever you want with it. $10 deposit. Use that $10. Use promo code NERDS. Not only are they going to double your deposit, you're also going to get a free year of the Nerd Herd. And if you're watching this right now and you are not part of the Nerd Herd, you're not getting the full nerd score. You're getting these guys we're talking about, but you're not getting these composite grades that we're talking about on how they do on release, how they do on contested. You're not getting any of that. Plus, you're only getting the top 10 receivers and only getting the top 5 running backs. That's it. You want all the data, you want all the names, you want all the guys, head over to Underdog Fantasy. Download the app. Use promo code NERDS. That's right. Use promo code NERDS to double your deposit. Plus, you get a free year of the Nerd Herd. And while I'm talking about the Nerd Herd, let me say this as well. The Nerd Herd subscription, he's back. The Nerd Herd subscription is such a valuable thing. Not only do you get our total nerd score, you also get the opportunity to be in the film room, which if you haven't had the opportunity to get that all 22 tape and see these guys for yourself. Huh?
Enough ads. Come on.
No, I'm pumping the Nerd Herd, baby. You get the extra podcast. You get all of these things that we do. And yes, you get the Dynasty GM. So head on over to Underdog Fantasy, head over to the Nerd Herd, sign up for both. But guess what? If you do Underdog Fantasy, you only have to sign up for them and you get us for free. So use that promo code NERDS. All right, Jared, you're back.
I am. I'm glad I did that. Little Sazerac rye from Buffalo Trace. If anybody else
Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings. No.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
All right, let's do it. Next guy. Oh, baby.
Here we go.
Here
we go. We have a player that is so legendary for many things, both famous yet somehow also infamous for being one of the most athletically gifted players that we've seen in recent years, but yet also one of the most aloof players that we've seen in recent years. He can make super difficult tasks look easy, but yet his analytical profile is dumpster juice. We've got Mr. Adonai Mitchell, University of Texas. Jared, we've talked a lot about this player, and we have some pretty strong feelings on this player. And I remember us going back and forth, and you got your nerd score for him, and you're like, I hate it. I need to figure out a way for this not to be the nerd score for him. Tell me what you saw. Tell me what was going through your mind when you were doing your nerd score on Adonai Mitchell.
I shouldn't say I loved him. When he flashes, dude, it's so special. Like, he reminds me of like Garrett Wilson. The way he can control his body in the air to make acrobatic catches, and then his hands, he has such good hands. Like, he never drops the ball. Now, dude, this guy may be one of the laziest players I've ever evaluated, and I do not understand why. Like, I get it that there are times, and coaches now these days will allow their players to kind of take the play off just because of the way the offenses are schemed now, where the quarterback is reading how the safeties look. You know, if it's a single high look, they're going one side of the field. If it's a split safety look, they're going the other side of the field. Like, that's how a lot of them work now. They try to simplify it, and then obviously there's more to it than that. But if he knows he's not getting the ball, he's always just kind of loofing around. But there are times where he is involved in the play and he is going to be getting the ball, and he's still loafing. So just such a boom bust guy, the biggest boom bust guy in this class, because if he does boom, like, he's got the 14th best ever Apex score in our nerd scores. 77.6 is nothing to be like that. That's damn good. I'm trying to, let's see what he is like all time. All time, he would be 14th. So one of the best wide receivers that we've scouted from a tape standpoint. But when you're in your rookie drafts, you got to understand what you're taking. Like, you're taking a boom bust guy. So if you're comfortable with that risk, shoot for it, because the dude's talent is damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the range of outcomes are pretty wild. Is there a world where he's Denzel Mims? Like, yes,
Ugh,
there's
don't say that.
absolutely a world. I know, which hurts. There's absolutely a world where he's Denzel Mims. Is there a world where he's George Pickens? Yeah, there's a world where he's George Pickens. Is there a world where he's I can't even think of a perfect comp for him, but a freak of nature that ends up being a top 5 wide receiver in the league for a while. Like, yes, that's in the range of outcomes too. And that's the hardest part about him is you could tell me in 3 years that he's an all pro and I'd be like, yeah, I could see it. You could tell me in 3 years that he's playing in the UFL and
Yep.
I'll be like, yeah, I could see it.
Yep.
Like, which is so rough, which is so rough. But if we're going on tape alone, the tape is absolutely there. Hands, one of the highest scores in the class. Catch radius, one of the highest scores in the class. He has solid release, solid route rounding, solid contested catch, really good speed for his size, good quickness for his size, sinks his hips well. And he has the highest ball tracking score for me in the class, which basically means his ability when the ball is thrown, his ability to change his flight path, his ability to contort his body, his ability to put himself in the best possible position, regardless of where the ball is, to put himself in the best possible position to make a play. He is the best at doing that in this class. So, do I love him? Yes. Do I hate him? Yes. Am I uncomfortable with this entire conversation? Yes. But at the end of the day, he has the 4th best tape score for me. And really, it's a pretty big gap between him and number 5 Lad McConkey for me.
Yeah, same. I actually have him 3rd. I have him slightly over Adunze. I got him at 77.8, and I got Adunze at 77.4. The ceiling for him, for me, is higher. But I said it on the main show. Like, I have ranked Adunze over Mitchell because of the risk there.
Sure.
I think Adunze is a safer prospect, a safer player. So let's move on to our next player. If you're wondering, it is Rome Odunze at a 78.2 out of Washington. Like I just said, extremely refined player. I mean, he pretty much does everything across the board very good. Hence the strong score. He's extremely good at the catch point. It's probably, as far as like being able to like box out the defenders and make sure that he comes down with the football, the best in the class, up there with Marvin Harrison. I think he exemplifies the definition of late hands, which, if you don't know what that means, it's, when the ball is thrown in the air, receivers are taught to not flash your hands because the DBs are coached to, when you see the wide receiver's hands go up, the ball is coming. So get ready and put your hands in between theirs and try to defend the pass. So if you're late with your hands, you don't give the defensive back enough time or the ability to do that. Garrett, I know you like Adunze a little more than me, so why don't you take it from here and tell these guys why Adunze is our 3rd ranked guy in the nerd score?
Yeah, so for me, him and Malik Neighbors were crazy close. I had a 79.3 on Odunze and a 79 on Neighbors. So about as close as you can possibly get without them being literally tied. So it's more or less a coin flip, but I do like Odunze slightly better. Look, I love his route running. I think he is truly an artist out there as a route runner. You mentioned his contested catch stuff. He's working with a 75% catch rate on contested catches. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Like, some of the best numbers coming out of college recently are guys like Drake London at like 57%. Like, he's crushing contested catch situations. His body control, fantastic. His hands, like glue, tracks the ball well. He's a physical player. And look, old school coaches especially are going to love him because, one, he's a character guy. Like that,
Yeah.
all you hear about is him being like a great locker room presence, a great dude, like would let you date your sister, like kind of guy. But
Slow down.
on top of that, he is like really good in the run game. Like as far as blocking downfield, honestly, whatever running back is there on the team he goes, like we'll get a small bump because he's going to work his tail off to be a very good blocker for the run game. So there's just, he's kind of the antithesis of Adonai Mitchell in that sense where like he's locked in every play. He's doing things the right way all the time. Maybe he's not quite as physically gifted as some of the other players, but man, he maxes out every rep, and I absolutely love it.
So with the Dunze, the reason I was a little lower than you, I think I had his route running a little lower than I had it at a 7.5, and then I had his yak at a 7, and then his game speed, burst, and quickness all around 6.5 and a 7. So,
game speed and yak were about the same. It was more the route running. I have it at a 9, where you have it at a 7.5.
Yeah, I was expecting to see a little more separation from him when I was watching his tape, and I not shitting on Adunze at all here. Like I like him a lot. 77.4 for me, but I was expecting, based on what I've heard from you, Garrett, and a lot of other people. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just didn't think it was elite like I've been hearing. Like I thought it was good, but I was just expecting to see a little more in terms of being able to create separation at the line of scrimmage with his release and then in his routes as well. But when the ball's in the air, there's no doubt like that dude is coming down with it more times than not. And I believe that he is a top 15 pick. So really excited to see where he lands. I hope he does not land in New England or with the Giants, but we'll see.
I think he's a Giant, dude. I think he's a Giant. I have a
hate
feeling.
that
I
dude.
could be wrong. Did you see his reception perception that Matt Harmon did?
No.
All green.
Dude, I love Matt Harmon. I love what he does, and I love everyone that puts the work in, but I don't look at everyone else's stuff, dude. I do my own thing, and it's done well for me. And yeah, everybody, it's fine. But yeah, Adunze is great. Let's go on to the next player. Malik Neighbors. Oh wait, one last thing with Adunze. I was looking at it. So we keep talking about this Apex score. I love the name. His Apex score is actually higher than Neighbors, and he is at 11 overall all time.
Almost top 10 all time over 5 seasons.
Yeah, right between Amon-Ra St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. So,
which, by the way, for us to have Amon-Ra St. Brown that high, yeah, we crush. We crush because, like, bro, he went in the 4th round. We tried to tell you.
Yeah, you know who else is really high up there is Josh Downs.
Hey, breakout's coming.
He was 6.
Breakout's coming.
All right. Next receiver, second in the class. I'm sure by now you probably know who it is. And that is Malik Neighbors out of LSU. 6 foot, 195 pounds, not even 21 yet. Turns 21 in July, but super explosive wide receiver. That defines Malik Neighbors as a receiver. Yak guy, not the most like ball skills type guy, but he's got it. He's got a little bit in his game. I just love that he can flip the field with one play. Like he's just a weapon when you get the ball in his hands, kind of like a Tyreek Hill type guy, and that's how I would expect an NFL offense to use him. Likely a top 10 pick. Great numbers across the board. He finished with a 79.6 for us. He had an 80.2 for me. His lowest mark across the board was a 6 in physicality, 7 in contested catch. Everything else, 7.5 or more. So really like Malik Neighbors. I think he's a sure thing. As far as like rookie rankings go, I got him at 104 right now in Superflex.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. And you hit the nail on the head. He's a guy that can flip the field. He really can. I mean, he can make any play into a big long run. He can make guys miss. He's got enough strength in the open field too to break tackles. His speed is well above average. He controls his body. It never seems like for somebody that's moving that quickly and doing so much, he never really seems like he's out of control, which I really appreciate. Sometimes you can get guys where they're just a little above their skis on some of that kind of stuff, and he never seems like he really is. I would like there's a couple nuanced things in his game that I want to see refined more, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is him and Odunze are so opposite in that, where I think Malik Neighbors is the more natural athlete, the bigger playmaker, things like that. But as far as everything being cleaned up and refined and perfect, like that's not him. That's not him. I've said it before.
I thought he was a better route runner than Odunze.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
I had him graded higher than Odunze in route running.
All right, guys. Jared's going to go back and check that before we finally release them on Thursday, the official release. He's going to go double check that, watch that again. Because there's no way.
I watched the most tape on Odunze, like as far as games logged, because I was trying to figure out, like, what am I missing? But, no, man, that's what I see. But
look, I'm fine with people saying he's a better player. I have them neck and neck. I say this with like all due respect because honestly, Jared is one of the best in and I don't say that just because we're boys. Jared is truly one of the best at film analysis in the class. But this might be the thing we have disagreed with the most in our time together.
I promise you that I will go back and look at that specifically. And I'll like, do it side by side or something. But I already put the work in, and I know you did as well. I'm not saying you didn't, but like that's just
for sure.
It's just what I see. So
yeah, I do think they're crazy closest prospects. Crazy closest prospects. You want to take one over the other? I am not going to argue it. I think both are fantastic players. It's more like what's your style? You into smooth jazz? You into heavy metal? Like, what are you into? Because that's that which is funny because I would much rather listen to metal than jazz, but I like the jazz player more than the metal player. But regardless, all that being said, for me, that was some of the nuanced stuff that I was a little concerned about. There were several games where he runs his routes pretty high. Like I want to see him sink his hips more, which I know he has the ability to be able to do. So I think he can improve as a route runner. But you would see him like there was one game in particular. He fell like 4 straight plays. Like he just kept his feet kept slipping out from underneath him because he was too high. Like he needed to get lower. It wasn't 4 straight, but it was.
I was about to pull up some
four
tape,
plays,
but I don't want our stream to get taken down.
Yeah, please don't do that. And then with the route running, there were several times where on the go routes, which he's going to operate more in the middle of the field, he lends himself more to a slot receiver, but he could easily play on the outside, talking about Malik Neighbors. But there were several times where you would see him on his vertical routes. He didn't do a good job of giving his quarterback a place to throw the ball. He would get pushed to the sidelines pretty easily. And I saw that several times on those. If he wasn't able to get that extra step on the DB easily just kept pushing him to the sidelines. So there's just a lot of that type of refinement that he doesn't have to his game. Could he eventually get there? Sure, because like we talked about earlier, look at his movement skills in the open field. They're there. I just don't think he has nearly the refinement in that area that Odunze has at this point.
I'm showing some tape.
I can't even see it.
All right. I don't know. I don't want us to get taken down. I don't know how YouTube is about that these days. It's been a while since we've done a film nerd show. But
it is.
I wasn't even listening to you because I'm done listening to you talk about Odunze and Neighbors.
My gosh.
But let's move on to our number one receiver.
Number one guy. Let's do it.
Bub Means. I couldn't remember his name.
Can't even remember his last name.
Was he from Akron or Pitt? Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, he's from Pitt.
Marvin Harrison Jr., surprise, surprise. I know everyone was really wondering who we were going to have at 1. And no, it's not just because we're Buckeyes fans. Marvin Harrison is that dude. I mean, as far as like all-time, and we're actually going to go through all-time top 10 receivers from Nerd Score since we started doing it. But no surprise, Marvin Harrison is at the top. Release, 9. Route running, 9. Hands, 8.5. Contested catch, 9. And I actually think I had him a little higher than you, Garrett. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I had him at an 82.
I had him at a
0.7.
What did you have?
82.7.
You had 82.7?
Yeah.
All right. I had him at an 82.33.
Dude, our graphic's wrong. He's actually an 82.5.
Our graphic is wrong.
Sorry, guys.
That's wild. Maybe that was supposed to be, I don't know.
It's all good. It's all good. He's number 1 anyway. I mean, there's really not much to talk about with Harrison because everyone, if you've been following Draft Talk, what's there left to say about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Let's see where he lands. I would love to see him land with the Chargers if he somehow is able to go there.
That would be wild.
Oh, that'd be great. But dude, he's just, I mean, there's so much to like about him. He's extremely refined, so good at the catch point. He's got the athleticism you need. Extremely physical player. Now, not the best in the open field or yards after catch.
That was my lowest score.
Yeah, me too. So, let me see where he's at in terms of like the apex. Number 1. Number 1. Separation score, which has done well for us too. He's number 5. So, loved a lot to love with Harrison. Garrett, anything else to add?
Honestly, like it's the number 1 guy, and I feel like there should be like more like pomp and circumstance. Like we should be like excited and like, but like it's always been him. He's always been the guy. We've known it. We're not like going to switch it just because we're bored and we want controversy to talk about it. Like his score, like he's that guy.
Didn't that one
he
dude
really is. He's
outside his top 5 on Player Profiler.
Oh my gosh. Like I hate that kind of stuff. Like if you have a real reason, like I'm willing to listen, but I just can't imagine a circumstance where you're really like, yeah, Xavier Worthy. I'm going to take him and I'm going to take Troy Franklin and I'm going to take Odunze and Neighbors and McConkey. Like, what? There's no, like, I don't see it. I don't get it at all.
Is there any landing spots that would change? Someone asked in a chat, Steve F., are there any landing spots that would change the order of the top 3?
100%. But it's only Odunze and Neighbors for me. Like those guys are virtually interchangeable. Put them either one. I would have a very hard time imagining any sort of draft capital landing spot would not have Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1. Like I just can't imagine that scenario playing out for me. So Marvin Harrison's going to be 1 no matter what, but Odunze and Neighbors like completely up in the air at this point for me.
Yeah. I don't think my top 3 would change as far as like the order goes. They're like, it's like Harrison's in a tier. Neighbors is also in a tier. And then I got Mitchell and Odunze in a tier. So, that's where I'm at with that. And Harrison is my 3rd ranked player. I would actually take Daniels ahead of him. See what happens in the draft, but we're talking super flex leagues. So let's go on to our all-time. Let's wrap up the wide receivers here. We're already been on air for an hour. We haven't touched on the running backs yet.
Love it.
Let's go to the all-time wide receivers. We're going to go through our top 10 all-time in terms of nerd score. So, number 10, we've got Rome Odunze. Sorry. I'm trying to control the
mid to top 10.
Yeah. Rome Odunze in the top 10. So, we got a new number 10. Number 9, Rondale Moore. God, man. I loved me some Rondale Moore, dude.
Swing and a miss.
Look,
we're not perfect.
I got Rondale Moore in so many rosters still, dude. Just hoping. We'll see. Maybe the Falcons can.
I feel like my JJ Arcega-Whiteside was your Rondale Moore.
Look how you said Arcega. Listen to you, you professional.
Look, I'm from Ibiza.
What? Is that a Mike Posner song?
No, but it's pronounced with like a lisp, basically. Anyway, yeah, Rondale Moore. That sucks.
All right.
But it proves that we don't change our scores. Like, they are what they are.
All right. Number 8. Our boy from Ohio State, Garrett Wilson.
That's much better.
Yes. Really can't wait to see how he looks with a healthy Aaron Rodgers throwing him. Healthy old man Rodgers throwing him the ball. But anything's better than what he had last year.
So bad.
Next player.
So bad.
Rashad Bateman. See, guys, it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
It's not a perfect science.
Steve, yes, that is true. The nerd score is not up to date on the site as far as all time goes at this point. I will get that done tonight. I wanted to wait for the stream to finish up, but it is live as far as just 2024. Next, let's move on from Rashad Bateman.
I would say these are really the only 2 misses in the top 10, right? The rest are pretty solid.
Jalen Waddle, 79.6, yep. And boy, did I love watching Jalen Waddle. It's fun to go back and look at these scores, dude. It's exciting. All right, yeah. Number 5.
Waddle was a great prospect and a great player.
We got a new entry, Malik Neighbors, coming in at number 5 at 79.6. Number 4, Jamar Chase, 80.2. Yeah. CeeDee Lamb, number 3, 80.3. So, I mean, that just shows you Malik Neighbors is probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, if he's in that company, that's pretty solid company to be in.
Devontae Smith, 82.4. Man, we loved Devontae, didn't we?
I mean, he's been pretty good. Now, you could definitely argue when you look at the 2 players below him, like he hasn't produced quite to that level, but
I would say
he's been really solid. Just got a brand new contract. Like, his best years are still ahead of him. I truly believe that.
Yeah, my man got paid. And then we got Marvin Harrison at 82.5. So we got a new number 1. So we can't wait to see what happens next week and where Marvin Harrison lands. But, dude, I'm not even going to lie. It sounds crazy, but there are some Superflex leagues where I'm debating taking him number 1. That's crazy.
Over Justin Jefferson?
No, over Caleb Williams.
Oh, rookie drafts. I thought you meant
that.
the number 1 receiver.
I've been drinking bourbon a little bit, but and I'm in a lot of leagues. I don't have the number 1 pick in a lot of leagues, but there are a few. Because if anybody has played with me, you know that I like to I do the productive struggle thing where I kind of shit the bed the first couple years and build up a lot of assets, and then I start dominating. But I don't know, dude. Marvin Harrison's gonna be damn good.
He's going to be really freaking good. All right, let's get to the running backs.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Oh, number 5. And we're doing 5 for running backs. We're not doing 10. So I'm going to be a little quicker. And we got Will Shipley.
It's a small group. It's not as good of a group.
I would not take Neighbors over Williams. No. Yeah, number 5, Will Shipley, Garrett. Talk about him because you like him more than me.
Yeah, not drastically more. When we look at our running back scores, I have him at a 70.13 and his composite's a 70. So I'm guessing it's not too different between the 2 of us. But I do like him a little bit more than you do. I think when you look at him as far as yeah, so we have them basically identical. But all that being said, you look at him, he's a fantastic receiver. Fantastic receiver. And you're like, wait, aren't we talking running backs? Yes, we are talking running backs. But that's where his bread is buttered. It's in the receiving game. Fantastic pass catcher, can run routes like a receiver. He's got good burst and quickness, can do a little bit in the open field, make some guys miss. I would be shocked if he's regularly used as a between the tackles guy. Not to say that he can't do that. It's just not where he was most efficient. So I do think he's going to be more of that scat back, more of that receiving back. The nice part is, though, he does have enough size where typically when we're talking about those guys, we're talking about 190 pounders, 195 pounders. He's much bigger than those guys, so that helps. But I still think his best bet is more of a receiver in this class. But this just kind of shows you where the running back class is. In past years, usually our number 5 composite guy is in like the 72 range, not a flat 70. So
Yeah.
not a great class as far as running back depth goes.
Depth, right. Depth keywords. I think the top end is actually not bad.
Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as like a threshold goes, Garrett, and Jabu made a good point here with his comment, and that is something I think we should do on the website is update the score range descriptions. Those ranges haven't changed since we started with as far as like this score to this score means this score to this score means this. I think that's a really good idea. So appreciate the comment, man. We will definitely do that. As far as like the threshold for running backs, Garrett, give them like what we're looking at and what score we need them to be at to kind of have a hope of being productive.
Yeah, it's funny because it ends up being a similar range at running back as it does receiver. We just have so many more receivers typically, and especially in recent classes, but it's also around that 72 mark. Right around that 72 mark. If you're underneath that, it's spotty. It's hit and miss. Above the 72, you got a pretty good track record of most of those guys are hitting to some level. Now, once you get into above a 74, a 75, like now we're talking truly like game-changing fantasy producers at running back. Whereas that threshold's a little bit higher at receiver. You need to get more into like the 77 range or so to really start looking at like the game changers. And then once you get kind of below that 67, 66, similar to receiver, like it just becomes almost irrelevant. Like you have a couple guys that have kind of hit, but especially at running back, like we've done well at receiver, but overall we've crushed at running back.
Yeah.
And it's pretty predictive. Like if guys aren't hitting at least a 68, you can I'll say 67. If guys aren't hitting at least a 67, like you can almost forget about them.
Yeah, there's definitely guys we miss. Like, we were low on, Antonio Gibson hasn't really panned out, but like Ramondre Stevenson is a 67. Like I'm looking through here, just it's pretty. I mean, there's always going to be a couple guys, but
yeah,
no, I mean that threshold that Garrett gave you there is pretty much on point. And Will Shipley for me, like in order for him to have any fantasy success, he's gonna have to be a pass catcher, and it's so hard to predict from college to the NFL. I mean, we've seen guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire come in that was an extremely good pass catcher in college. Like I thought him landing with the Chiefs, like, oh, they're just gonna pepper him with targets and he's gonna make people miss and catch the ball, and that just didn't happen. And then we got guys like Kenneth Walker and Jonathan Taylor. Didn't really catch the ball much in college, but have come into the NFL and have done it extremely well. So it's so hard to like predict who is going to be used in that role at the next level. But for Shipley to be successful, he's going to have to be that kind of guy, because I just think he lacks the ability to break tackles. He lacks the ability, like his contact balance, I think, is a little suspect. I don't love Shipley, despite him getting a 70 from me, and a 70 is okay. Next.
Yeah. But I want to point something out.
Go ahead.
If you're doing the math at home, there are typically 5 running backs that people have in their top tier or so. And Shipley's not one of them typically. So that means we're leaving somebody out of this group that is, for most people, in that top 5 group. So I'm not going to spoil who it is. If you've been listening to the podcast, you can probably guess who it is.
Who are you talking about?
But, well, I just said I wasn't going to spoil it.
All right, let's go to the next guy.
Jared's like, spoil it. I don't care. Tell the people.
I don't.
It's Blake Corum.
Hey,
it's Blake Corum.
I already
Blake
moved
Corum
to the
didn't
next
make our
guy.
top 5. He didn't make our top 5.
Tennessee running back Jalen Wright, and this is when we start getting in the top 4 in this class. They graded pretty well. Jalen Wright,
yeah,
5'10", 210, pretty good size, extremely explosive, man. And I've liked Jalen Wright for a long time, dude. I got texts with Ray Garvin going back to him entering his freshman season. I text him, hey man, check out this Jalen Wright kid. I think he's gonna be pretty good. And I thought he was just gonna be a speed guy, but when I got into his tape, man, there's more to him. Like he can make people miss. Like he has a bag. You know, he can string moves together. I think he's got really good feet. He doesn't break a ton of tackles, but he is elusive, and I think he sees the holes well before they're there. Like he's got good vision. So I think he's going to be a pretty productive back at the next level. And I got him as far as like rankings go, and this is probably higher than consensus. I got him at like the end of the first round. I think you're going to be able to get some good value on these running backs this year. What do you think, Garrett?
Yeah, I have these top 4 guys pretty close, but he's the lowest of the 4 for me. I have him at a 73.98, so just missed out on that 74 range, but obviously still a very, very high score. And I echo a lot of what you said. A lot of burst here, a lot of quickness. His style, it reminds me a little bit of Jahmyr Gibbs from last year. A guy that's explosive, going to make some big plays, can catch the ball pretty well out of the backfield. Not an overly powerful runner. He's going to not do a lot in like pass pro and things like that. But he can make those big plays, those splash plays, those explosive plays. Obviously, I don't think he's quite as good as Gibbs. I had a higher score. I had above a 75 for Gibbs. So, and Jalen Wright didn't quite get to a 74. So obviously a little bit of different tier on those two guys, but their skill sets, I don't think are entirely dissimilar. So if you liked one, you're probably going to like the other as well.
1 second.
All right.
Hold on, Garrett.
All right. We're paused. Oh, I don't know what's happening here. Something's happening live on the air. I don't know what it is.
No, dude. I am hot as hell in my office. I had to open up my window. All right. Moving on to the next guy. Actually, as far as like all-time running backs go, let's talk about that real quick. Jalen Wright is 15th, so pretty good. Slots in right between, right there by Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, and then another guy in this class, and then your boy Tajay Spears, dude. So,
okay,
one of the top running backs in this class without a severe knee injury.
That's probably why I have him the lowest of the four.
Probably.
That's probably why right there.
I think I have the lowest of the four as well, though. I don't think that's... Yeah. No, I have Trey Benson like neck and neck with him, but as far as rank... Yeah, I got Benson fourth. And
Okay.
Next guy, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Oh, shit. I went two guys. This damn bourbon got me, boys. All right. Trey Benson. The wheels are falling off. 74.8.
man.
Garrett, you like Trey Benson. Let's talk about him.
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Trey Benson, he ended up actually being the top back for me in this class. And it's crazy close between him and the guy that got second place, like literally hundredths of a points difference. So really close between those two guys. But I really liked a lot of what I saw out of Trey Benson. Looking at my scores here, speed wise, I think he was great. 8.5. You saw that displayed in the combine. Contact balance is absolutely there. You see him take hits, able to keep on chugging. He can break tackles. He's not the most elusive guy. That's not how he's going to win. He's more of a one-cut runner and get up field and then he's going to use a little more power and physicality. There's some wiggle. I don't want to say there's no wiggle at all. There's definitely some wiggle there in his game. But the biggest knock that I've heard some people give Trey Benson is his vision. And the hard part is 99% of the time, and this is real math, this is flawless. 99% of the time, they highlight the first play of the Florida game. Almost every time. And granted, it was a bad play. And was it his fault? Yes, he should have got upfield. He should have. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the Nerds, Dynasty Nerds film room, turn on the Trey Benson film against Florida. It's the first play of the game. You'll see he tries to make too big of a play. He's playing hero ball. He's playing hero ball. But if you watch the totality of him in all 22, game after game after game, he makes quick decisions and he finds the hole and gets upfield. He does not wait. He's not like, and it's slow too. So I don't want to make it sound like he's not patient. It's slow too, but then quick through. So he's waiting for that hole, but the second it's there, he's gone and he's taking it. So I think he has good vision. I actually have him with the third best vision in the class. So I have no issues with his vision at all. Pass fail, he passes as far as receiving goes. Also, I don't think that's like the biggest part of his game, but I don't have any concerns there. So he won't be a weapon, but he's going to be more than viable in the passing game. And he can do more in pass pro than some of these other guys at the top of the class can do. So I think coaches are going to like that quite a bit. So Trey Benson, my number one running back, the number 3 running back in our composite rankings.
And what I like about these like top 4 guys is they all have good size. Like they're not little guys. Yeah. It's good enough. It's not like they're big, but as far as Trey Benson goes, like the word that I use for him is like juice. Like that dude's just got he's got juice at the running back position. Like he can hit it and he can hit it now. So really good top end speed, can take it to the house at any time. I think he does a nice job of letting the hole develop. Like I thought he had really good patience. He scored at 8.5 there for me. Just like you, I thought he had really good vision too. Like I don't see these bad vision takes that I see on Twitter when I'm watching the tape. Like I said earlier, like I don't care what really anybody says as far as like their evaluations go, to be honest. And I respect everybody in their opinion. Like I'm wrong too, and I recognize that. But like my process is my process. Like I score guys how I see it, and that's all I give it to people. And we put it on wax, dude. So not everyone does that. But Trey Benson, really good back. I think he could earn second round capital, but really devastating knee injury in his career. He tore his ACL, MCL, lateral meniscus, medial meniscus, his hamstring, all on in 2020. So it's just, I think what it tells me is like, that dude's just got work ethic in order to work back from that devastating injury and get to the point to where he is now to be considered one of the top backs in his draft class. It's pretty cool because that was devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you think he goes, like draft capital wise?
I think the earliest he'll go is I think he could sneak into the end of the top 50. So that would be like mid-second round. I think latest is early third. I would be very surprised if he slipped past the early third.
Yeah, 6 foot 216 can absolutely run. So I'd be surprised too. But I mean, even third round draft capital is not bad.
Solid. Yep.
All right, let's move on to number 2 here, which I kind of showed it earlier on accident, but Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, you take this one because he was your number 1 back in the class, right?
Yes, I have him at a 75.6, and our next guy is a 75.1. So, and this was surprising to me, man. Like I did not go into the tape like expecting this whatsoever. I saw he had a good combine because before I got to his tape, they did the NFL combine, and you had put out a video, I think, on Marshawn Lloyd.
I was gassing him. I thought I was going to be the one that was higher on him.
Dude, so, I mean, another guy with a knee injury tore his ACL his freshman year in 2020. But, man, he's fun to watch because there is not many times on his tape where that first guy, that first would-be tackler, was able to bring him down. Like, he's always making the first guy miss. And just his play style, his ability to let the holes develop, the way he sets up the hole, and his ability to make that next guy miss, and even at the second level make a miss and then hit the home run. Like, he's got that top-end speed as well. I think he's a good pass catcher. And then 5'9", 220, like, he's a compact back. Like, he can lower the boom. He's got some physicality in his game too. So he's got both the boom and the ability to make you look silly. I really like Marshawn Lloyd. I'm higher, I know that, than consensus, but I see what I see. And Garrett, I think you like him. Obviously, I mean, he's a 70, 75 even for us all. So what did you like about him? And actually, before you go, I see a lot of people worried about his vision. I don't see it, man. Like, when I first
gave him an 8.
When I put out some tweet about how, like, Marshawn Lloyd is my top back, and so many people were saying, like, that dude's got bad vision. So I went back and I watched all the games that I watched, and I don't see it, man. I do not see it. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been watching a lot of football. Sure, there's times where he missed the hole, but that's going to happen. I don't see bad vision. I graded him actually at an 8.5 with vision. That's good. So go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, I gave him an 8. So we're right on the same path there. Like, I didn't see poor vision either. I thought he was patient. In fact, he's one of the most consistent backs when you look at all of my categories outside of pass pro, which I gave him a 4 because his pass pro needs a lot of work.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Outside of that, everything else is a 7 or above. Everything else is a 7 or above. Like, he is a very solid all-around back. You're like, hey, we need a guy that can do a little bit more around the goal line. Cool. Marshawn Lloyd can do that. Hey, we need a guy that can do a little bit more in the receiving game. Cool. Marshawn Lloyd can do that. Hey, we need a between the tackles grinder for first and second. Yeah, cool. Marshawn Lloyd can do that. And I think that's going to be one of the best things about his game is, like I said, literally outside of pass protection, which he has the frame, though, to get better there if he gets proper coaching and things like it's not like he's 198 pounds. Yeah. Like, he's got the frame to be able to do better in that area. So it just comes down to technique and effort. Right. Will he get better with that? But the size says that he could get to that point. But there's just no obvious deficiency in his game. There's nothing that you would point to and say, man, he would be good if, like, it just doesn't exist with him. And so I think that's what makes him a really solid, safe back. Now, on the flip side, nothing got above an 8 for me. So does he have that one definable trait that you're like, oh, you know, with Jalen Wright, it's like, man, gave him a 9 on speed. Like, that dude can just burn, you know, or
I feel like his shiftiness is close there.
I gave him an 8 for elusiveness. So I gave him a good score, but not quite in that, like, tippy top tier.
He's not Bijan
for guys. No, he's not Bijan. But he's good. Like, that's the thing. All of it, like I said, anywhere between a 7 and an 8 across the board on my scores. So you're not going to hear anything bad from me about him. It's just one of those things where now I will say one other concern. We don't really factor this as much. He did have a butt ton of fumbles. That is one thing that can get you in the doghouse. He fumbled once every 36 attempts, which is quite a bit.
Bad.
That's bad.
Yeah, that is true.
Worst in the class.
I think Cameron said something in the chat asking about his
did he?
Fumble concerns. I'm looking up.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking up his stats. He had 3 fumbles. He only had 3 fumbles this year, but 8 total in his career. So it wasn't, like, so bad to the point where, like, I was worried. That's a technique.
Were those lost fumbles or total fumbles?
That is a great question. It just says, I'm looking on PFF, so
sure.
It just
Either
says
way.
fumbles. It doesn't say lost, so
Okay.
it could be more. So
Who knows?
don't
All right, let's
quote
get
me
to
on
number
that.
one.
Okay. Number 1 is Jonathan Brooks out of Texas,
Yeah.
75.1. So just squeaks over Marshawn Lloyd for the top spot in the class. 6 foot, 207. Young player, not 21 yet. He turns 21 in July. I really like Jonathan Brooks too. Obviously, I say that. I feel like that's like my intro into
I really
everything.
liked him.
I really liked him.
We should do our
Great
bottom
analysis. The top thing for him, and Breece Hall was like this too. Like the top thing, like he's so good at reading the zone scheme, the zone running scheme. Like I think he just has that patience and that ability to see the whole develop. Because not everybody can do that. It takes patience. It takes really good vision, and I think that kind of is the epitome of who he is as a runner. And then he's got blazing speed, man. All 4 of these guys at the top of the class are fast AF. And then also very good pass catcher. Probably in terms of receiving grade, I have him as a 9, and that was the top in the class. So all around, really good weapon. Garrett, tell us more about why Jonathan Brooks is the top back in this class for us.
Yeah, it was funny because if you follow us on Twitter, we tweeted out about 2 weeks ago our running back 4 in the class, Jonathan Brooks. So that shows you how close all of these guys are. But it was one of those things where, as we watched Xavier Worthy, as we watched Adonai Mitchell, we kept seeing things. And Jared and I talked, and we're like, we got to go back. So literally like 3 or 4 days ago, I texted Jared, and I was like, hey, I want to go back and watch all of these guys one more time. I want to watch another game or two on all of them because I have all of their grades so close that I want to make sure I got it right. And for what it's worth, my Trey Benson grade stayed the same. My Jalen Wright grade stayed the same. But I did move Jonathan Brooks up a tick on a couple of areas. And Marshawn Lloyd, I think it was only one area I dropped him a tick. So that was literally where it splits, because the difference between my running back 1 and my running back 4 is about 1.1 points. Like 1.1 points. It's not a lot. 75.1 to 73.98, which is basically 74. So there's not a huge difference between these guys. But I did. I wanted to make sure I got it right. And in that extra go through, I just, man, the feel that Jonathan Brooks has for the game, the elusiveness that he has. He's a very elusive runner, varies his speed well. He's got good burst. He is another one that is injured though.
Yeah,
he has an injury.
Towards ACL
We'll see
in
how.
November.
We'll see what his recovery looks like. But man, talented guy, absolutely talented guy. So he moved in a couple of weeks. He moved from 4 to 1. Because Jared, I think you did the same thing. You went back and watched him a little bit more, and you're like, well, I feel like I need to give him a little bit of a bump.
I always do this with the guys that I start off with when I start doing my tape scores. Is like Jonathan Brooks. He was my first running back I graded. So I obviously, after all was said and done, I had to go back and watch him because I don't know what it is, but like I think you can speak to this too. But you kind of get in a rhythm as you start watching more and more players. It's like you start getting a feel for the class. I don't know. It's just like getting back, like riding a bike after you haven't in a while, you know?
Right. Well, and you have nothing to base it off of. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to remember how fast this guy was from last year, who I gave a 9 to. Well, I don't remember roughly how fast that is. Like, but once you start grading a few more guys, are like, okay, this guy's clearly a 6. This guy's clearly an 8. This guy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I know there's been mocks with him going even round 1. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised at all. Like, it sounds like he should be ready by week 1. So we'll see. I'm excited to see where he ends up going. I would love that landing spot in Dallas, dude. That'd be great.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Honestly, it's surprising to me. I know there's a lot of teams that will consider trading up into the first round to take a quarterback. I'm surprised more teams don't do that with running backs. We see it every once in a blue moon, but getting that 5th year and then you can franchise tag them 1 year, that's 6 years. You got a running back under your control for 6 years.
Yeah.
Most running backs' life, as far as life expectancy in this NFL, is not beyond 6 years. And
Thank you
even
for
if it is,
clarifying.
yeah, I know, right? In the NFL, not in their adult life. In the NFL. So, like, why would you not, if you like a guy well enough to take him at 210, why not trade and get that extra year of team control? Like, it makes a lot of sense to me, but what do I know? I look at fantasy stuff and no team has hired me as their GM yet, as far as I'm aware.
All right, let's move on to our top 10 running backs all time in our nerd score. So number 10, we've got Marshawn Lloyd at a 75. Number 9, Jonathan Brooks. So right
Hey, so you
away,
guys we just talked about.
yeah, exactly. Right away, that tells you kind of like what this class is, and that's really good. I mean, 75 is a really good grade, and to have two guys from the same class, and even Jalen Wright and Trey Benson also had just outside of the top 10. Like the top 4 in this class are good, and I just feel like they're getting slept on a little bit. Like you're going to be able to get some pretty good running back value in this draft. And we've talked about that a little bit in the class. Like I got Trey Benson and Jalen Wright at 112 and 201 as far as rankings go. I got Jonathan Brooks at 110. So like if you're a competing team and you've got a back end first, you should be pretty excited. Gary,
Yeah,
where about like what range do you have these running backs in your rookie rankings right now?
Yeah, it's right in that same range, and I'm really curious to see the draft capital. But I've been getting that question a lot, like who's a sleeper I should know, or like whose value is really going to jump after the NFL draft. And I was like, take all 4 of these running backs. Take all 4 of these running backs if you can, because I could see any and or all of them being worth more in 3 or 4 days than they are today to the general community. Because once a running back gets a draft capital of second round or third round, and if it's an even a halfway decent team, which there's a lot of pretty juicy landing spots this year, if it's even a halfway decent team, all of a sudden these guys are pushing top 12 running backs in the game, like period, not rookies, like top 12 running backs in dynasty if they get second or third round draft capital to a good spot. So
So
I'm interested in all 4 of those guys in
the
that
top
sense.
24 hit rate of running back based on like the NFL draft where they're taken. If you're taken in the second round, the chances of you producing a top 24 a season within your first 3 seasons is 68%. And then
Pretty
for
solid.
round 3, it's 52%. And then there's a huge fall off after that. So you really want that day 2 capital. And then top 36, which is still for Dynasty, where it tends to be a little deeper than redraft. Like round 2 is at 84%, round 3 is at 68%. Then when you get into round 4, it falls down to 41%. So we're really hoping for day 2 draft capital for running back, and I think all 4 of these guys should get that. All right.
I would be very surprised if they don't.
Yeah. Number 8, we got DeAndre Swift.
Nice.
Nice.
Solid running back.
Kind of disappointing, though.
He's been inconsistent. I think that's been the frustrating part, is between injuries and
There's something
like one
there.
game he'll put up 180 yards and then he's like splitting time with Kenneth Gainwell. And you're like, what?
Talent's there. There's got to be something that we don't know. All right.
I'm interested to see what happens in Chicago.
Yeah, me too. Number 7, Jahmyr Gibbs. Fantastic year last year. Can't wait to see him. See what he does this coming year. But right now, as far as like dynasty ranks go. Like Garrett, you just did a startup. Like where's Jameer Gibbs going right now? I don't have ADP or anything pulled up, but he's like top 15, top 20.
I think he went at the end of the second round, so he's inside the top 24.
Okay.
Probably like 21, 22, something like that.
So very good asset right now. Great rookie
absolutely.
season. Javonte Williams, your boy, Mr. Knee Injury.
My boy. Jeez. I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what he does this year. A year removed from that injury now. Obviously, the flashes were there in his rookie year, and he was looking good before the injury. That sapped some of his ability this past year, but second half of the season looked a lot better than the first half of the season. The hard part is that Denver's just such a dumpster fire right now. So that's the tricky part in all of it is, sometimes guys can get lost in, they can just get lost in that. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. Are you wearing any of the sweatshirts that I got you?
Oh, not at the moment. I should have. In honor of the Nerd Score, I should have wore. That would have been smart. I got the Spears and the Javonte.
Yeah, so every year I always get Garrett something for like his like top running back that he likes. I got him. Did I get you a Tajay Spears sweatshirt or a t-shirt last year?
T-shirt for Spears, sweatshirt for Javonte, which Denise steals all the time, by the way.
Really?
And I was like, she does. She loves, like, she wears it just as much, if not more, than I wear it.
That's
and
hilarious.
I was like, look, you do know his name, right? Like, if you're going to wear this, you better at least know his name and what team he plays for. And she's like, yeah, it's Favorite Williams. She doesn't know his actual name. She just knows the inside joke from the Dynasty Nerd Show.
That's great.
When Matt couldn't read my sweatshirt and he thought it said Favorite. And it said Javonte.
I don't even remember that. I probably wasn't there.
Too
busy having babies. All right.
Yeah,
Next, top 5. We got Jonathan Taylor tied with Javonte at a 76.3, but if you actually extend it out, he comes in just slightly higher.
And Gibbs, apparently. Gibbs also had a 76.3.
What? Really?
Yeah. That's what it said on here anyway. I don't know.
I'll be damned. Is that right? Are my graphics right?
I don't know.
Oh, God.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Javonte and Jonathan Taylor both have 76.34. Jahmyr Gibbs has a 76.31. So.
That's where it is.
Number 4, we got Breece Hall, 76.4. So you get in this top 5. You're dealing with some of the elite. JK.
The elite, what could have been.
If I had like a violin sound right now, I would play it just like on the show the one time. Man.
It's so sad, dude.
I hope that he can. Where did he just sign?
The Chargers.
Which they need a running back. So
it's him and Gus Bus again.
It'd be so cool to see him become fantasy relevant all of a sudden this year. No Corum in the top 5, nor is he in the top 10 or anywhere close to the top 10 all time. We're actually a little lower than Corum this year, and we can give his score actually once we get through this top 10 here. Najee Harris, 76.9. Then we got Bijan in a tier of his own with an absurd score of 83.0 and an absolutely
monster prospect.
But God, did he piss me off last year. God, you didn't know when to play him. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like with this new quarterback, Kirk Cousins, and new staff. So I'm excited for Bijan.
Absolutely, dude. I'm excited to see. Now, I do want to put we just talked about our top 5 running backs. Corum, at the time, I think he was our 6th or 7th.
Corum is 6th.
Yep.
He's just outside the top 5.
But for what it's worth, there are 2 guys that I recently watched, and liked them so much that I was like, I need to watch 4 games so that way I can get a nerd score for these guys. And those guys are Tyrone Tracy and Blake Watson. Now, on my personal scores, so we're not looking at like composite. We're looking at my personal scores. Tyrone Tracy would be 6th. Blake Watson would be 8th. So, for what it's worth, now, Jared's going to probably try to get to those as well. So, you might see
Not
those
probably,
2 guys pop up.
Yep.
100%. Take it to the bank. He's doing it. Really interesting prospects. Tyrone Tracy, I think more people have heard of. Former wide receiver. We talked about both of these guys, actually, Rich and I did on the most recent Dynasty Nerds Nerd Herd episode. But he's converted receiver from Iowa. He can make some guys miss. He's a good pass catching back, obviously, as a former receiver. Really interesting player. But I've heard almost no buzz, like no chatter, no nothing about Blake Watson until today, actually, when I saw Daniel Jeremiah had him as his RB11. And I was like, that's interesting. So I watched literally today, I watched 2 games before. I watched 2 extra today. And man, it was enough to really excite me. Now his score is still nothing incredible. I gave him a 70.95. So it's nothing like, whoa, he's got a 74. But for a guy that I expect to get somewhere between round 5 to potentially undrafted type of draft capital, I really liked what I saw. Great pass catching back, plays really physical for his size. Like there's a lot to like there. So 2 names that I'm just going to kind of throw out there.
Do we have a lot of film on both those guys in the film room?
We have a couple games of Tracy. We don't have any of Watson just because we didn't give those to our film guys because we weren't originally going to do them. So that's not on our film guys. That's on us. We just never told them to get film on those guys. So maybe we can try to get a game or 2 in there before the draft or something. But you can go to YouTube. You can find some games on there. Or if you're like me and you have YouTube TV and record all of the college football games, you can go back and watch him. He's a Memphis running back. So
those Memphis running backs.
There's a lot of them, man. There's a lot of Memphis running backs that have been solid players.
Yep. So it has taken. We always go long on this. Well,
we do.
Always. It's our second time doing like the live stream, but I love it. You want to do a little Q&A?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's answer some questions. One I see right away. What score does Tracy have? Sorry, I didn't mention it. 71.1 for me. That's not a final composite nerd score. We don't give those until both of us have done one. But my personal score, 71.1 for Tracy and a 70.95 for Blake Watson. And then Blake Corum actually is tied with Tyrone Tracy at a 71.1 for me.
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have not graded Tracy, Watson, or I see Chef asked about Kamani Vidal yet, which I think Garrett.
I did grade him too.
You graded him too. What was your grade for Vidal?
It was a little bit lower. It wasn't terrible though. He got a 68.55, so definitely in the draftable range. But some of his best attributes are just things that aren't going to contribute to fantasy success, which is the frustrating part. But I don't think he's a bad running back by any stretch of the imagination. So I gave him a 68.55.
So I'll probably grade all 3 of those guys. Steve F., appreciate you being here. Appreciate all the comments tonight. I think this is a good question, Garrett. He asks, have you guys ever thought about doing scores for QB and tight end? Why or why not? I've definitely thought about doing it for tight end. As far as quarterback goes, we've kind of talked about this on the main show, if you haven't heard, but the quarterback position, and we just had Kurt Bankert on the Talkin' Dynasty podcast with Garrett and I recently that we went into this a little bit, but the quarterback position is so difficult to evaluate because, one, we don't know what they're being coached and what they're being taught as far as their reads go, and the game is just played between the ears. So, like, that's, I don't know, 80% of, just throwing a number on it, 80% of the quarterback position. So it's so hard for us to come up with some categories and put weights to them and give you guys a nerd score, because it's not what we believe in. Like, it's not what I believe in. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable promoting a score on these players and telling you guys to draft them based on, or at least take them into account when doing your rookie drafts. For running back and wide receiver, I feel a lot more confident, obviously, for those positions. But quarterback, like, I'm always just going to lean on, I'm going to watch the tape. I'm going to give you a take on them, but I'm always going to lean on draft capital, and kind of just swing for the fences, there, and call it a cop out, but I think that's just how you should play it. What do you think, Garrett?
Yeah, absolutely. With quarterbacks, they're just too difficult to grade. We don't have enough information on them. Tight ends, it's hard because you'd almost have to grade them like we do receivers, but they would be odd grades because blocking is such a big part of the game for some of them, but not for others. So that's where the tight end gets really, really difficult to give grades for, because how much do you weigh their blocking? Because it does get them onto the field, but not in the way that you really want them to be. And so there's just a lot of that kind of stuff. And then, to be honest, there's just not as many of them typically year in and year out that are relevant.
Draft capital.
And so,
draft capital, follow draft capital, look at athleticism, and I think it's pretty clear year in, year out who the top guys are. So, right?
Yep, I think so too. I like Alex's question here. Do you guys have any pre-NFL draft rookie drafts? How do you balance nerd score versus expected draft capital for selections? So I'm literally with some of the guys that are literally here tonight, doing a draft with some of the nerd herders, and went with an interesting strategy. But I did take some rookies in this startup, and it is tough. I think you have to have some awareness of where you think these guys are going to be drafted. So, for example, like, let's go back to our wide receivers for a second. On my wide receiver page, I have, we didn't get to talk about him, but I have Malik Washington at 11. And even though I really like him and I have him ranked higher than I do a Troy Franklin, I don't know that I would necessarily take him ahead of a Troy Franklin, because I know that there's probably a round or two difference in where they're going to be drafted. But if it's close, it's easily the nerd score. So I would say with this, it's probably 75% to 80% nerd score, and then about a 25%, 20% draft capital, that kind of stuff. Even better example, running back. My personal RB5 is Rasheen Ali. I like Rasheen Ali a lot. Would I draft him ahead of where Blake Corum's going? Probably not. Not because I don't think he's just as good, if not better. I do. But you don't need to. And so I think part of that is also strategy and knowing where guys are going, knowing how everyone else values these players. You don't have to overdraft them. Just take them where maybe a slight bit ahead of where consensus is to make sure you get them. But I'm not overdrafting these guys just because I really like them. So, in that draft, Xavier Legette, a guy I like, fell to me. I wanted to make sure he didn't actually even fall to me. I traded up to get him because it was a range that I liked. So all of that to say, yes, I'm using my personal tape scores, my nerd score, to weigh a little bit more, roughly to a 75-80% range.
I actually don't have any leagues that have the pre-NFL draft, rookie draft, but I love playing the underdog best ball right now, where you can do the pre-draft best ball with the rookies included. I do play a lot of Devy, so in campus to Canton, so that in itself is similar, I guess, because at all times you should be aware of player value for college players, so that you can capitalize on, maybe everyone's kind of valuing this guy too high, and I can trade him right now for someone that I think is being valued too low. So trying to kind of always keeping my finger on the pulse. Next year, and I talked to Garrett about this yesterday, I was like, dude, we gotta get our nerd scores done earlier next year. And a part of me is because like I want to be able to take advantage of this market a little more, because it gets crazy around like leading up to the draft, man. Like earlier we talked about the guy not having Marvin Harrison as top 5. Like obviously that's not consensus, but like me having Marshawn Lloyd as my top back, like that's definitely not consensus. And I think I could probably maybe do a trade that where Marshawn Lloyd's value is a little lower than I think it will be in a couple weeks from now. So good question. Ray Davis grade, I posted it for you there. It's 66.2. Seth had a draft question, Garrett. He has picks number 1, 2, 5, 6 in a rookie draft with Mahomes already. I assume this is a super flex based on your question of asking, should he take the top 2 QBs or should he take one quarterback and Harrison? What do you think, Garrett?
I don't have a crazy strong opinion on this. I think Caleb Williams at 1-1 is the obvious. At 1-2, Jaden Daniels I think is a really good prospect, but he does have enough warts for me that make me worried. Now, if he hits, when those top quarterbacks hit, they're always going to be worth more than running back. Especially and so if you're like confident in Jaden Daniels, right, that has the rushing upside. So if you're confident in him, no problem going that route. For me, I'm probably going Marvin Harrison Jr. because I still think you can get a really good quarterback at 5, whether that's Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, somebody like that, or even at, what did you have, like 1-8 or 1-6? Yeah, or at 6, you can get one of those guys as well. So I still think you have an opportunity to get a third quarterback, but I think the gap between Marvin Harrison and the receivers you're probably going to get at 5 and 6, you're hoping Odunze's there. He might not even be there. You're hoping he's there at that point. So that's the route I would go.
With those picks right there, listen, if Harrison lands in LA with Justin Herbert in their wide receiver situation right now, like I would take Caleb, and then I would take Marvin Harrison. If it doesn't play out like that, I would have no problem going Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and just taking that value in Superflex leagues, and that kind of ensures that, let's just say Caleb doesn't pan out for whatever reason. He busts. It can happen. We've seen crazier things. He busts, and Jaden Daniels doesn't. Like, it's kind of insurance, like you're getting a top quarterback, and then you have 5 and 6. So, like, you can take Malik Neighbors or Odunze, like Garrett said. So, not telling you what to do, but I think you're in a really good spot, clearly, with those picks.
Absolutely.
All right, Garrett. Well, you want to wrap it up? It's past 11.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Guys, this is a show that I look forward to all year. I've had an absolute blast hanging out with you guys. If you like this kind of thing, every Thursday, now you don't get the good looks of Jared Wackerly, although he might step in from time to time, but you don't get the good looks of Jared Wackerly, but you do get the weed hat. You do get that on Thursday afternoons, each and every Thursday, including this week. Yes, that is draft day. I will still be doing a show right before I leave for New York, and then I'll be there for round 1 of the NFL draft. But hanging out each and every Thursday, it's called Dynasty Lunch Break. You can hang out with me. We'll talk. I'll answer your trade questions. We just finished going through a lot of different tiers. This week's going to be all about the draft. I'll be bringing on some guests here in the near future. So it's a really fun time. And then this, if you don't know, this show here is an extension of Talkin' Dynasty, which is something that Jared and I do. Now, do we always have the video, Jared, or no? Sometimes video or no?
No, we
do we always have it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's all right, Mr. Head of
I do
Content.
so much now. I don't remember what's on what and what's not, honestly.
Yeah. Now that the Nerd Score season is kind of over, we can kind of get that going on a more of a regular cadence again. But it's a show where we're diving deeper into like philosophical things or strategy type debates, or having people on and interviewing them that have different processes that you might not have heard before. Like we've had Scott Connor on to talk about wins above replacement. We just had Kurt Bankert on to talk about quarterback evaluations because he played in the league. We've had David Zack on to talk about using analytics in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We talk about Dynasty Startup Strategy. So a little more like deep dive into topics than what you would get on the normal Dynasty Nerds podcast. So definitely check that out. It comes on the Dynasty Nerds feed almost every couple of weeks, even though the frequency's been a little less lately because it's been rookie season, been a little crazy, but game theory type stuff. So if you guys have any topics, hit us up in the Dynasty Nerds Discord. If you're a Nerd Herd member, make sure you're in the Discord and ping me. Don't hesitate to at me in there. I'd love to hear what topics you guys want us to dive into a little more, because I'm always interested in diving into the research and trying to figure this kind of stuff out.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we've had fun. Please reach out to us on Twitter. You can find me at Dynasty Price. You can find this guy at Jared Wackerly. And there's no FF behind it now, right? It's just Jared Wackerly?
It's just Jared Wackerly. No more Fantasy Jimbo or Jared Wackerly FF.
Oh, man. All right. You guys can find us there.
Know the story.
Feel free to hit us up.
Yep. Hit us up.
I've told that story a bunch, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone knows.
Appreciate you guys rocking with us all night. Thank you. And, tweet at us if you have any questions. Thank you, guys.
Happy draft.
Yep.